Adrian Calamel, US President Donald Trump indicated there is still 2 weeks' time for diplomacy. Remember, he'd suddenly left the G7 summit and rushed to the Situation Room at the White House. Is this 2 week window for diplomacy a smokescreen to suddenly launch a strike as soon as US assets are in place? How do you read his statement?
Oh, thank you for having me. I think there's a couple of things going on here. It's one, moving U.S. assets out in some places where we don't have the force protection on them. It's moving assets into the region, and it's also providing Israel some more time to deal with some of the objectives, such as the ballistic missiles that we are still coming in that should have been covered under the first JCPOA under Obama. That was a major failure, and we're seeing the consequences now. Now, that's the delivery system for a nuclear weapon. So I do think Trump's mind is made up. No enrichment, no reprocessing. Khamenei's mind's made up. He does not want to give up. He will never give up with this program. That's from people that good intelligence. So Fordow is the one place that's really of concern. And there's also a concern is what's going on inside there right now. Is there a race towards a bomb or some type of militarization, which we've seen them, they've been racing towards weaponization. So if you look at like their ability to produce nuclear weapons, once they hit that militarization day, they could produce their first nuclear weapon in just within 7 days, and then 1 month they can produce up to 11 warheads. So Trump's mind's made up. Fordow cannot stand. Khamenei's mind is made up. So the off-ramp's been offered. I don't expect Khamenei to take it, and these are kind of stalling actions. I believe Trump is just giving a lifeline not a lifeline, but just prepping the battlefield a little more until that time comes.
Okay, because if it's a race against time, then they clearly do not have 2 weeks, a window of 2 weeks. But Ori Goldberg, is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei now the target of the Israeli forces? Is regime change operation, priority number one and not the Fordow nuclear facility?
I don't know, and I don't think Israel knows. I think Israel has no strategic foresight when it comes to this conflict in Iran. Israel carried out a brilliant tactical attack. It achieved aerial dominance. Now Israel is stuck. Israel has said it wants regime change. Israel has said it wants to stop the nuclear program. And with all due respect to what your guest just said, I very much disagree with everything. I don't think Trump's mind is made up. I think the Iranians and the Americans are talking the whole time. I think the Americans are not talking to the Israelis so much because there's not a lot to talk about with Israel. Israel doesn't know what it wants. The Iranians have already said they're willing to accept limitations on enrichment. They've already said they're willing to commit to having no nuclear weapon. Trump has repeatedly said that the one thing that is important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. I don't think Ayatollah Khamenei's mind is made up. I don't think the Islamic Republic is composed of fanatic zealots who are incapable of pragmatism. In fact, I think it's the other way around. Israel attacked Iran unprovoked, unilaterally, in stark violation of international law. The Iranians are now trying to reach some point where they can negotiate with the United States. To me, that signifies that both Iran and the United States know that while Israel can carry on bombings almost unimpeded, Israel can do little else in Iran at the moment.
Okay, so that bombing continues, but you say the mind's still not made up. Do you want to quickly come back on this, Adrian, before I bring in our other guests?
It just kind of contradicts the realities on the ground when you look at Israeli dominance in the air.
Really, the realities are not necessarily, or they are in the eye of the beholder.
Okay, whatever.
Not whatever.
Listen,
if you want to insist that Khamenei and the Islamic Republic, if you want to insist that Khamenei and the Islamic Republic speak in one voice and have their mind made up, and this is all something that Iran instigated, and that they have enough material to build 9 or 11 bombs in 7 days, well, that is just, the best of my knowledge, and also according to the IAEA report, just wrong.
Well, no, it's not wrong, because you look at other independent assessments, such as David Albright's assessments taken from the
David Albright's assessments are nothing compared to the assessment of every intelligence organization in the world. What you're saying is just incorrect.
Who, Tulsi Gabbard? Tulsi Gabbard? That was Tulsi Gabbard.
I'm not getting into
intelligence was
American
wrong.
politics with you. Israeli assessments as well as American assessments are very clear. The Iranians are not 7 days away from building 9 devices. That's just wrong. It's a partisan take on news that I think generally in the professional community is accepted and consensual. What you're saying is wrong.
Go to the Foundation of Defense
Give me a
of
moment.
Democracy.
Give me a moment. Let me bring in Zach Tanveer, who joins us from London, and let's open this up. Sushant Sareen also waiting to respond. Zach Tanveer, should Ayatollah Ali Khamenei be targeted? Will it not anger the entire Shia world, if not the entire Muslim world, if such a senior religious leader is taken out, though his core team of generals have been neutralized? Is that, in your appreciation, also the writing on the wall, sir?
Thank you for having me on, Gaurav. The first thing, it is not easy. It's not the piece of cake to have the regime change in Iran just to replace Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Yes, I do support that Iran should not have the nuclear weaponry. Iran should not have that because Iran has the expansionist agenda. Iran believes in the expansionism. And since the day one, Iran has been reiterating this point that the nuclear is in itself is for the destruction of the state of Israel. And I believe that it's not plausible to support Iran in this aspect. But the second point is Khamenei is not just the political leader, unlike Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. Khamenei is a spiritual leader as well. You have people in India supporting Khamenei. You have people in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. And we have seen in the recent past, especially after the Arab Spring, in the Syria, in Iraq, and in Yemen and other places, that mobilization of the Iranian militias. There were cases where the militias were even recruited from Afghanistan and Pakistan on $600 per month salary. So you can understand the spiritual or religious affiliation to Ali Khamenei. So if Ali Khamenei is eliminated, it will be unleashing a great catastrophe in the Middle East. There will be the resurgence of ISIS as well. There will be the clashes between the Sunni and the Shia militias. And obviously, the whole Middle East will be in the utter chaos. And from talking from the technical perspective, you know, the military pyramid of Iran, they have the Artesh at the top, and they have the IRGC, and they have the Basij militia. So the Artesh is almost like 420,000. The personnel, and they have the IRGC 190,000, and Basij is like present everywhere. The deep state is so strong in Iran. So there will be a great power vacuum if Khamenei himself is eliminated. But at the same time, Israeli President Herzog, I think yesterday he made a point that they're not looking for the regime change. If regime change happens, then that will be beneficial for the Iranians.
So we've had two
Defense
statements coming in from the defense minister and the prime minister. Okay, Ori wants to come in quickly before I bring in Sushant Sareen. Quick, 30-second interjection, sir.
Official Israeli spokespersons, the defense minister as executive authority in opposition to the president, said that Israel is after regime change. And sir, ISIS is not related to Iran in any way. Suggesting that the death of Ali Khamenei will reignite a global jihad is really just misrepresenting the reality on the ground in the Muslim world.
Sushant Sareen, no one in Iran should have immunity. Benjamin Netanyahu's quote, clear indication that a target has now been painted on the back of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. You've also heard what Israel Katz, the defense minister of Israel, said.
So, Gaurav, the problem is going to be even if you take out Ali Khamenei, let us assume you manage to eliminate him. How does that solve the problem? I would imagine that, and I'm not one way or another endorsing regime change, but purely on a logical plane, if you don't go in for a regime change and you cannot ensure a regime change, then it's simply a matter of time before the Iranians won again, or the current regime, and if it's not Khamenei, it's his successor, likely to be even more hardline. Then it's simply a matter of time before Iran once again restarts its nuclear program and rebuilds whatever has been destroyed. I would imagine that is going to be an incentive for them. And perhaps they would cover up some of the gaps which they have noticed this time around. In any case, if you do not go in for a regime change, then you have a problem of this issue recurring, not just the not just the nuclear part of it, but even the other part of it, where Iran questions Israel's right to exist. But regime change is not going to be easy. For some reasons, like Mr. Tanveer has elucidated, it's a very deeply entrenched system. There is nobody waiting in the wings, unless, of course, you think that the guy sitting in California, the son of the Shah, is going to come and simply everybody is going to be lining the streets to welcome him. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, right? Iran's moved on. Nobody even remembers who the Shah was anymore. And not that the Shah was a great icon of democracy and progressive values or any such thing. So the point is, if you are going to replace these guys, who are you going to replace them with? And if, for example, and I'm just probably going to an extreme, if Iran was to descend into chaos, some kind of civil war of the sorts we've seen in places like in places like Iraq, we've seen in places like Syria, even from an Indian point of view, and even I would imagine from an Israeli point of view, it does not really help, because that would set the entire Middle East on fire. It would set in motion forces, and this is where ISIS comes in. Forces like the ISIS, which still have some kind of restraining factor on them because there is a Shiite regime in Iran. Maybe some of those forces will get wind. So the problem is going to be that there is no clear path which is, visible as to how you are going to settle this thing. Gaurav, allow me half a minute. The American
go on, sir.
thing. Look, my point is that the Americans have been deadly against Iran's nuclear weapons capability. Now, it does not matter. It's an academic debate, whether they are 7 hours away, 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months. That's an academic debate. The point is that the Israelis have now willy-nilly created a situation where you have an opportunity to destroy whatever nuclear facilities Iran has built. And if the Americans are not going to make use of this opportunity and depend upon some kind of political negotiations, which they've tried in the past and not been very satisfied with, I don't see how that's going to solve this entire crisis going forward. So I would imagine that this is a golden opportunity for the Americans to step in. Whether I like it or not is not the issue. My point is that...
but all indications are, Sandeep, all indications are it's already happening. 3 aircraft carrier battle groups moving into the region, B-2 and B-52 bombers moving in. Sandeep, or give me a moment. Let me just quickly bring in Sandeep for his military perspective. And he's been tracking military movements very closely. 2 weeks, or is 2 weeks a smokescreen, Sandeep? It could happen much earlier.
Well, Gaurav, no one really knows. But you know what's happening right now in Central Command theater is that massive forces are being moved into place. You have one carrier strike group that's already there. The Carl Vinson CSG is already there in the Arabian Sea. A second one, the Nimitz carrier strike group, is moving into position, possibly coming off the Red Sea. A third carrier strike group, that is the USS Ford, is moving in apparently into the Mediterranean. So that's a large number of carrier strike groups. And US presidents typically want to have all the carriers strike groups in place before they take a decision. And not to mention the fact that you have 1/4 of the B-2 Spirit force that is there on Diego Garcia, 4,000 kilometers south of Iran. And if the order to strike Iran is given by Donald Trump, the first wave of attacks is going to come from Diego Garcia, as it has been for Iraq and Afghanistan in the past. But, Gaurav, very quickly, as the panelists were talking about, the motivations of the three personalities involved. If you give me a minute, the 3 people involved in this very, very strong personalities. There's Donald Trump, right? US president, completes 6 months in office today, and he has nothing to show for it. He has no win. He has no win. He promised to end all wars. He's not. No one's listening to him anymore. He wants a win with Iran, and that possibly is going to be to knock out Iran's nuclear weapons program. Benjamin Netanyahu started this war of attrition 20 months back after that horrific massacre of Israeli civilians on the 7th of October 2023, and he is now reshaping the Middle East in a way that suits Israel. He's knocked out all of Iran's proxy actors, and today he's going for Iran. And they have an expression in Israel, Gaurav, we were repeatedly told this, mowing the grass, as you know. He may not succeed in regime change, because it's almost impossible to change a regime in Iran, Gaurav. You have to have boots on the ground, like it was for Saddam Hussein in 2003. You have to find 160,000 soldiers to physically invade a country. And Iran is not a small country. It's not Kuwait. It's not Afghanistan. It's a massive country. It's 1.3 million square kilometers. Regime change from the air is next to impossible. The regime is too deeply entrenched, as our panelists have mentioned. And of course, the last figure in all of this is Ayatollah Khamenei, the longest ruling leader in the Middle East, a spiritual leader, political leader, 35 years in office. And he wants to continue the regime as the baton that's been passed to him from Ayatollah Khamenei. And he is literally there. He wants to ensure the survival of his regime and of Iran's nuclear weapons program. That 90 meters, there's a reason that Fordow is built 90 meters below the soil, Gaurav. It is to ensure that Iranians at some point will have access to that enriched uranium that could give them the nuclear weapon.